Hi, it's Grandpa Bill again. Thought I'd bring you another story from my childhood. It was summer vacation. With 3 months of fun in the Arizona sun, there was a lot of mischief that two grade school boys could get into. And one of those days found my brother Ken and I near the base of Apache Leap. Our plan was to look for arrowheads. Doing that really seemed exciting. So what made it seem so exciting? Well, the legend of Apache Leap, of course. The legend goes something like this. Colonel Pickett chased an Apache raiding party to the edge of what is now called Apache Leap. With the edge of the cliff behind them and all of the soldiers in front of them, the Apaches had no escape. Rather than surrender and lose their freedom, those men chose to jump to their deaths. Well, this part of the legend I really think is true. Because if a person invests a little bit of time searching near the base of Apache Leap, arrowheads can still be found. The legend goes on to say that the dark, smoky, translucent stones found near Superior are in actuality the tears of the Apache women, tears that were shed over the loss of their men. That part of the legend has to be false because those stones are in reality a form of black obsidian. They can be found in the ancient volcanic perlite deposits that are still mined in Superior today. So, are you curious a little bit about those stones? What do they use the perlite for? Well, they grind it up, Apache tears and all, into a fine powder. It is then heated almost to the melting point, which releases the trapped volcanic gases. The powder puffs up or pops. Just imagine popcorn popping. The end result is a very light and efficient insulation. Well, back to the story. We didn't find even one arrowhead that day, but there was some excitement to be had. Instead of picking up arrowheads, we picked up a very sobering, powerful, and valuable life lesson in their stead.
He was warmer than a summer breeze. He was softer than his silver hair. He was brighter than the twinkle in his eye as he rested in his easy chair. And I remember how he used to smile and tell me all about the folks back then. And if I had my way, you know I'd be there today, and I'd do it all over again.
Ken and I hadn't been at the base of Apache Leap very long when Ken noticed a very large mountain lion track. Suddenly our attention was on that big track. And then Ken found another, and then another. We decided to track the mountain lion just like the Apaches used to do. If we were successful, we might even catch a glimpse of that great big cat. Tracking an animal, though, requires stealth and quiet, and we didn't display either of those traits. As hard as we tried, our excitement was just too great to keep silent. So undoubtedly, we were constantly giving away our position. And the closer we got to the vertical face of Apache Leap, the more excited we became. It seemed more and more likely that we were going to force that mountain lion to show itself as it attempted to get away from us. As we approached the sheer face of the mountain, climbing got harder and harder because the ground grew steeper and steeper. The challenge grew greater. But finally, we reached those big rocks right at the base of the mountain. That's when the tracks disappeared. And we finally realized that the cat had jumped up on those large rocks, leaving us unable to track it. We tried our best to catch a glimpse of it somewhere up in the rocks, but we never did, and finally had to give up on our quest. As we leisurely made our way back down the steep incline, we talked about how great it would have been to catch a glimpse of that big mountain lion. As we walked along, we would stop ever so often just to look at the tracks and talk about how big that cat must have been. Then Ken mentioned that there seemed to be, more tracks than when we went up the mountain. Then again, he said, maybe we just missed a few of them. Well, I was convinced of the latter until Ken pointed to one track in particular. That track was right on top of one of our tracks. The only way that could have happened is if it were placed there after we passed by. Suddenly an ominous feeling came over me, and I realized that we weren't the hunters. We were the prey. That cat had circled around behind us and had been actively stalking us. With eyes peeled, we made our way back down the mountain toward home. Now, I don't know how my brother felt, but I had this weird, uncanny feeling that there was something watching us until we were good and clear of Apache Leap. Ken and I had been seeking after something that had the potential to do us harm. And all the while we were confident that we were the ones who were in control. In actuality, we were being drawn into a position where the very thing we were chasing had the advantage. The large rocks were a perfect perch from which the mountain lion could have pounced on us. It's the same with anyone who thinks that they're in control when they begin to delve into the darkness of the occult. You're going to open a door to the enemy of your soul if you ever dabble in the occult. Don't go near it. If you dabble with darkness, you're like a child tracking a wild mountain lion. The closer you get to it, the closer you are to becoming its prey. Occult activity rejects God's will for all of mankind, and God forbids us from delving into the occult. And he declared the act of doing so to be detestable. Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12 says this: Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter to the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Did you know that if you indulge in occult practices, you're aligning yourself with the spiritual enemies of God? I'm talking about the devil and his demons. And if you don't wake up to the fact before it's too late, your fate will be the same as theirs. The Bible tells us about someone who did that, King Saul. You see, Saul had turned from God. 1 Samuel 15:26 says this: But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And Saul, he never repented or asked forgiveness from God, but instead ended up inquiring of a medium. It says in 1 Samuel 28:7 and 8, Then Saul said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "In fact, there is a woman who is a medium in Endor." So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Please conduct a seance for me, and bring up for me the one I shall name to you." Well, the witch brought up Samuel from the dead, and Samuel said to Saul, 1 Samuel 28:19, "Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines." So here's what is recorded in the Bible about that battle. 1 Samuel 31, 1 through 4. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, Malchishua, and the fighting grew fierce around Saul. And when the archers overtook him, they wounded him critically. Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and run me through and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor-bearer and all his men died together that same day. During the last days of Saul's life, Saul dwelt in darkness and sought advice from the darkness. But the darkness pounced on him and devoured him. The Bible talks a lot about darkness and evil and how they contrast with light and truth. Unfortunately, we live in a place and a time that's consumed by darkness and evil. And every day it's getting worse, and it will continue to get worse from this point forward. You see, the age of grace is almost at an end. Evil is clawing at the door. The Lord woke me with the words from an old song recently. I could actually hear them being sung to me as I woke up. The words were, come home, it's supper time." Then he told me to make another desperate plea for you to stop stalking the darkness and turn to the light. The light? Well, 1 John 1:5 says this, "This is the message we have heard from him and declare to you, God is light. In him there is no darkness at all." If you're still stalking the things of darkness, it's time to wake up. Wake up to the fact that the darkness is in actuality stalking you. It's time to seek Jesus, the Christ, because he told me that it's almost time for the wedding supper of the Lamb. The wedding supper of the Lamb is a time when everyone who has turned to Jesus will celebrate together in heaven. Jesus wants the last few that are still wandering in the darkness to come home now, because time is virtually up. If you're tired of being stalked by the darkness, then check out the description box below. You'll find Bible verses that will help you understand what you must do to escape the destruction that is soon to come upon this earth. You will also find a sample prayer that you can pray, or something like it, asking Jesus to save you from the horror that will soon be here. You have a blessed day.